So here we go again. The company that I love to hate has gone ahead and done it again. And I'm talking about Toontrack, and I don't really hate them in any way. I think they just keep putting out incredible products. This month, September, seems to be them celebrating the 80s. And they have just released, as of today, the 80s EBX for EZBass. Next week will be a very exciting 80s-based SDX for Superior Drummer 3, but we'll talk about that more when it comes out. Stay tuned for a video about that. I was born in 1974, started playing guitar in 1984, took a real interest in music a couple years before that. So I really love the 80s. It's nostalgic to me, but I love so much of the music that was put out there. And when I was really getting into music, there was so many great albums that were out. So anything that has to do with going back to those 80s tones, I really love. So I was really excited about this new EBX, and it's called, as I mentioned already, the 80s. So without further ado, let's head over to Toontrack's website. We'll take a look and see what the details are behind this. Then I have a project I finished recently. For folks who follow my channel, you'll know that I do a lot of audio demos for guitar modeling software, mostly the Line 6 Helix. And I really utilize Toontrack products a lot to create my audio demos, especially for my Line 6 Marketplace presets. And I did that just recently, and I thought that it would be fun to take away the EZBass EBX that I used for that track and just drop in something from the new 80s EBX and maybe audition some of the presets that are in there. That way you can hear what these presets are like in the mix and out of the mix, and you can sort of see what this EBX is all about. So let's go over to, first of all, the Toontrack website, and then we'll have some fun listening to what this new great EBX can do. So I really haven't looked or listened to this in any way, shape, or form. When I do these videos, I usually like to do sort of a first impression of it. So let's see what we have here. Here we are at the Toontrack site. The 80s EBX has just been released, but what is it? Well, it says 2 instruments, one high-end electric bass guitar and one synth bass based on an iconic analog synthesizer, inspired by the sound and music of the 80s. I'm all in for that. Ideal for anything from vintage to modern-sounding pop, rock, and electronic productions. And that's an important point with a lot of these. You know, they will be kind of labeled as being pigeonholed into one style of music or one era of music, but I've found that I can really use them in any styles of music, and you can get some really interesting sounds out of them. So let's keep going down here and see what the instruments are. It says, when looking to provide the 2 essential session staples that could encapsulate the sound of the 80s bass, the choice was easy: the Wall Mark I and the iconic Mini Moog Model D. So we have this incredible Wall bass, an amazing bass guitar manufacturer. I have a good friend, Jason Henry, and collaborator who's played on my albums and my music before, and he has a couple Wall basses, and I gotta say, his bass tracks always sound spectacular, so that's gonna be very cool. And it also says, in an effort of offering an affordable and portable option of a modular synth, the Mini Moog was launched in the 1970s. So the instrument in question for this EBX is a completely restored, recapped, and calibrated Mini Moog Model D Revision 2 from 1976. Simply put, it's a piece of history, sampled and tweaked to virtually scream 80s bass in every fabric of its being. So I'm very interested to hear how that's going to sound inside of my production. So it says here the electric bass guitar was captured using both finger and pick articulations, as most EBXs are, allowing you to get a traditionally warm and round tone at the same time as you'll have the option of more edge and bite using the pick. Sounds good to me. When sampling the synthesizer, 9 different configurations of the physical knobs were chosen to best represent the role it played as a rhythmic bass instrument back in the 80s. For every physical configuration of the synth, each of its 3 oscillators were sampled individually so that the Toontrack sound designers could build complex presets utilizing different effects on each. This gives you control and sound design possibilities beyond what is possible with the actual hardware instrument. Sounds good to me. Let's be done reading the Toontrack website and get to what everybody wants to see and hear, which is the new 80s EBX. So here I am over in my Cubase session, and I wrote this little piece of music. And what I was utilizing here was the amazing independent SDX for Superior Drummer 3. Great sounding drum kit. That's what you're going to hear as far as the drums go. These are all guitar tones from my Tweed Blues Bright Ultimate preset that's available in the Line 6 Marketplace. I'll have a link to that below if you're interested in trying that out. But here's a basic snippet of what this track sounds like. So So that's basically the gist of it. Now, when I open EZBass, you'll actually notice I've already loaded this up just in preparation for this video. So what you were hearing is one of the presets from this particular wall bass that we had already discussed briefly. But let's take a look at what we have. We have a bunch of presets here, finger and pick for this. We have clean DI finger, firm bass reverb, hollow and squeezed, low end boost, mid-range growl, multi-effects, overdrive, punchy chorus, slappers, delayed, tube amp head, and the same, I believe, presets using the pick. So what we're on right now is firm bass reverb. Now, we can also switch this over to the 80s electronic. We get a nice graphical representation of our mini Moog here, and we have these following presets. Basic Sawtooth, Dimensional Space 1 through 3, Disco Jive, Euro Basic, Euro Crush, Fifth Dimension, so on and so forth. We're going to sample all of these. Now, as is always the case when we're working with any of the EBX expansion packs, when we pick a particular preset, it gives us different controls and effects. So you'll see here on the clean DI finger, we just have instrument controls, volume and tone. We can pull on the tone control, and we have a sub bass. But if we come over to firm bass reverb, we have those same instrument controls, but we have a bit of compression that we can control the amount on, and we have different amounts of reverb and sub bass we can control. And you'll notice as we go through this, there's going to be different effects and controls for each particular preset. And it really helps us to be able to dial these in nicely. You'll notice here multi-effects finger, right? We have those same instrument controls. We have some chorus, vibrato, reverb, stereo width, and sub bass. So very nice if we want something nice and lush using some effects. Punchy chorus, obviously we're going to have a chorus, and so on and so forth. Tube amp head, obviously we have amp controls. We can add more drive to it or less drive to it, and EQ it in different manners. So we're not going to go in depth onto every control. We would be here for far too long if we did that. But I think it's really nice to have this ability to be able to tweak it in this manner. Now, the other thing we're going to get are a bunch of grooves here. If I go down to my groove library and choose EBX the 80s, Toontrack always does a nice job of giving us a nice selection of MIDI, sort of geared to the style of music that the EBX is targeting. And these are great starting points so we can drag down onto our timeline and edit in any way that we want, or we just use our own MIDI. Kind of a Mark King type of a sound almost. And some fills. Great realistic sound. I'm really loving the tones here. This is just the clean DI finger preset. We have some swing grooves. And then some that are geared more towards the electronic sounds. So very nice. You see, we have a lot of possibilities. And like I said, we can drag those onto our timeline. We can edit the notes. We can edit the chords. We can really play around with those to get a lot of different possibilities. Now, one thing you did here was some really beautiful articulations in there. And if you notice up here, when we come to our grid editor, we can go up to the top left here and look at what the different articulations are we have. So for the 80s electric bass, we have auto alternate fingers, middle finger, index finger, ghost note, harmonic, percussive right hand tapping, slap pop, as we heard in one of the examples, ghost slap, and percussive left hand. Very nice stuff. If we switch over to the 80s electronic kit, we get regular note, we get ghost note, and that's basically it for articulations for those ones. So coming back to the 80s electric, what we can do is we can come back to our project here, and I'm just going to solo out the rhythm section. So you're hearing just the bass and the drums from the independent SDX. And as this is playing and looping, I'm just going to flip through some of the different presets we have. So we're on Clean DI Finger. Let's switch through these. Now onto some of the picked versions of those presets. So I think you'll probably agree, some pretty nice tones in there and a lot of really usable sounds. I really liked this hollow and squeezed preset with the fingers. But let's do the same thing now and we'll head over to the electronic presets and we'll go with the default one here. There it is. There's the sound of the 80s right there. Now, this is not how I envisioned this track, but hearing it sounds very cool. You can really hear how creative we can get with some of these basic presets that we have for the electronic bass. Very cool stuff, and I think it just gives the whole track dramatically different feels depending on what I choose there. Now, let's do this. How is it going to sound in the entire mix. And let's go through some more of these presets and see how these sit now with the guitars. We'll go back and we'll start with the electric bass, and we'll start with just the clean DI finger, see how that sits, and I'll flip through what I felt were some of my favorites to see if I can find one that I feel works really nice with this track. I'm a real big fan of the finger playing for the most part. There really are a bunch of different presets without even tweaking them, and I could probably drop right in this track and get really nice results. I'm very impressed with this. Now let's go over and see if we can't change the whole feel of this track by going to the electronic bass, and we'll start with the default setting. Completely different vibe to it now. We'll go through some of these presets. Really digging this soft growl. Very nice tone, blends in nice with this mix. Gives it a really cool vibe. In the soft sub preset from the electric. From the electronic bass. Distracted listening to this. Now keep in mind, this is without me doing any mixing. I'm just hitting these, whatever volume they come up at is what I'm going with. But I think we can see there's some really amazing bass tones in here, some really creative presets that are going to allow us to maybe even get inspired by the sounds and create some music that maybe we wouldn't have thought of doing. Very, very cool stuff. So there you have it, the 80s EBX by the fine folks at Toontrack. I'm impressed, as I always seem to be after getting any product from them. Very excited about next week for the new SDX that's coming out from one of my favorite producer, engineer, mixing engineers out there, Hugh Padgham. I'm super excited about that. Cannot wait. And I'll probably do something similar with that. I believe it's next Tuesday when it's released on September the 20th, I believe. And super pumped. I can't wait to come back and check that out. Maybe I'll use it in the same track and we can't see if we can't get the 80s EBX and that SDX working really nicely together. Thank you again so much to you guys for tuning in. I hope that was enjoyable and I hope you got a little bit of a different look at this wonderful new EBX. A huge hats off to the fine folks over at Toontrack. Again, I have no affiliation with them. I don't know anybody over there. I would love to have an affiliation with them. They are an incredible company. I love everything they do, and I use it constantly. Really great stuff. So thank you guys so much over at Toontrack for putting out such great products. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. And also please subscribe to my channel. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back soon with some more. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again. Ciao for now.